Welcome to the Moodboard podcast. This is Cesar,
And this is Aaron.
and we're two creatives helping others unlock their creative potential by having meaningful and insightful conversations. In today's episode, we're going to cover a few creative topics from some experiences that we've had in the past week that we want to just share with you guys, because I think what happened to us in our personal lives or during our leisure time affects our creative selves.
So true.
And we also want to cover some tools of the trade, how they have changed with time, how new offerings are shifting the tools that we once used, and now we have more options, more than ever. So we want to cover some tools for presentations that are as effective than the traditional, and then we want to cover some topics that Aaron wants to share. And
So on the topic of tools, when we started out, we had Adobe was, the big name in software for creatives. And with the years, and most recently, a lot of tools have came about, great alternatives to the Adobe offerings. And one of them is Figma for design, UX, product design, that sort of thing. That replaced, I guess we're going far back, but that sort of took over Photoshop. But you were also mentioning some alternatives to Adobe and how you're transitioning away from that ecosystem and exploring other tools.
yeah, right now, I have made my resume and portfolio on Google Slides, Google Docs. Their templates are pretty straightforward, easy to read, and they lay out the information I would do on Adobe InDesign. I could do the same, something similar, something that is simple that does the job on Google Docs, and same goes for Google Slides. I've also come across this that has a library of templates that have been already laid out, where you just plug and play, and it's called Envato. And I think that's something that I want to try for my future. When I start redesigning my portfolio, my body of work, I'm going to look into it.
Yeah.
Because I like the simplicity of it, and I like that I can share it with people or ask people for feedback and they can work out of that document.
Yeah.
And it's pretty like industry standard now, Google products, just because how easy it is, how accessible it is to work. I haven't used Adobe products for a while, rarely, but it's very close to none.
Yeah. I was going to mention there's also Figma Slides now, which is a really cool alternative if you want to explore something a little, I guess, a little more modern, because Google Slides, I've been working with it for the past week, and the collaboration is really good, really great, actually. And it's part of the Google ecosystem, which means it works with everything. So if you find there's any limitations there, you can also explore Figma Slides, which they recently announced, and it's pretty good. It's still, they're still developing it. I think it's in beta, and it's free for now, I think. But these are really great alternatives to having a website portfolio. I've seen so many instances where designers will have a Notion page or a Google Sheet, or like you mentioned, a Google Slide. And a place like Envato is like a good place to go and check out for templates and things like that. I think that it's interesting that you mentioned that, because for like industrial design or accessory or fashion design, people are not really looking at how your work is. How would you say it? Yeah, like they're looking at the work itself. It's not so much like the visual design around the work. So there are different ways to present the work for the jobs that you're looking for. So for example, if you're looking for a product design job, you could send a PDF of your work, but it's a little bit more, I think there are different requirements, right, for the different
Right.
disciplines.
Yeah.
But it's really cool that you're doing that, and I'm very curious to see, maybe when you're in that process, you could share it with us. I'm sure that there is going to be a lot of things that we can learn.
Yeah, totally. And for online portfolio sites where you can showcase your work, I'm okay with Instagram. If you send me your Instagram and you say, hey, here's my work, I'm okay with that. I'm okay if you send me a Behance. I still use Behance, and that's where I have most of my work. Visually, that's where I have most of my work. And then that's okay. As you said, people just facilitate to other people. They facilitate to other people where they can see your work online. That's it.
Yeah.
Whether you have a domain or not, whether it's, I don't know, Cargo Collective, Wix, there are so many options, but I just want to just give me a link where I can see your work online. That's it.
Yeah. Yeah,
And
that's what's important.
yeah. And I tell people, like young students or young professionals, I tell them, make sure that you showcase your work in different platforms so people can discover you. Take advantage of Instagram. A lot of people don't truly take advantage of Instagram
or Twitter.
That's, that Twitter. Yes. Twitter, Instagram, like social media platforms where you don't necessarily will share work stuff, but I think we've seen successful cases where, hey, I found your stuff on Instagram.
Yeah.
Let's talk.
Totally. There's this website called Dribble. I don't know if people still use this, but they had this concept of the shot, or like the dribble shot. And it's basically what in industrial design you would call the money shot, right? In a rendering when you create something. For those of people who don't know what that is, it's just an image or a rendering that really sells the design of the product that you're showcasing. And doing that on social is really important because people are most likely to come across a piece of your portfolio rather than go to your website, read your whole case study, and consume your content that way. You have to meet them where they are, right? Whether that's LinkedIn. I think you've tagged me in a few posts where designers will be showing their like 3D models, and it's really cool because you had no idea these people existed, but you come across their work and their work speaks for them, and that's how you encounter them. So it's such a great way to use social media to point people to your portfolio.
Yes, I agree.
Yeah. So the next topic that we were going to cover
there are many ways, and this is something the class of 2028 should pay attention to. Use all those social media outlets to your advantage to propel your career, to showcase your professional, or to portray your creative self. I think that's another class of 2028.
Heck, that's like a piece of advice for all of us, right? Just remembering that sharing your work is crucial, even when you're busy, especially when you're busy. Another topic that we were going to cover is this idea of, actually, let me backtrack here. We were going to talk about books. You came across a statistic that you were sharing with me, and would love to discuss it here with the audience. The topic of books making a comeback.
Yes, I came across this article. No, I came across this reel on Instagram about how the sale of books is increasing. Books haven't gone away because they haven't disappeared. But there is a slightly increase of book sales, and the reel was talking about how people are reaching this limit of digital, just like how much digital or phones and all of that has consumed their lives. And now people are looking for outlets to escape the digital world, to, I'm sure, to escape social media, to just to escape all those things that once captured us, and how obsessed we were with all these digital outlets.
Yeah.
And I believe throughout history, like, there is a pendulum, and that pendulum, yes, we hit the extreme of, we hit the other side of the pendulum with digital, social media, phones, everything being connected. And I think we have started going on the opposite now, of where people are going to look for, okay, we experience this, we've enjoy, or whether you're tired of it, let's go to the other side.
Really?
What is that going to be like? What is that going to look like?
Dude, have you heard? Sorry, go ahead. We had to
go
delay
ahead.
here.
Oh, sorry.
No,
I was going to quickly say that's the topic. We've touched on this on the previous episodes, which I hope you have been watching. In the previous episode, we talked about like a new frontier, a new chapter in product design, where we tactfully combine analog with digital, because I think there is a happy balance there. Like, it's a happy balance, and for tactile products, for shapes, for colors, for textures. So yeah, we've talked about, I think there's going to be an interesting mix of both in a new era of design, because I think we're already like going away from just a screen, because there's a lot of value in shapes and the analog touch, the feeling. And yeah, that's what I wanted to touch on. Yeah.
Have you heard of the teenagers that are rebelling against smartphones and they refuse to use them, and they're like,
I want a flip phone.
Yeah, exclusively on the flip phone. It's like
It's funny. I want a dumb phone.
Their acts of rebellion are actually quite admirable to get autonomy back for their attention. I think that's really interesting. I'm very curious to learn more. I saw it in an article someplace where they were exclusively on dumb phones, and it was like a whole clique. It was like just kids who refuse to use smartphones, which I think is really cool.
I've toyed with the idea of getting a dumb phone.
Yeah.
And just carrying my smartphone, my iPhone, whatever, for when I'm at work or doing work. When I'm on work mode, yes, have the iPhone, but after that, no iPhone. Or let's say if I'm with someone that has a phone, then I don't need to have a phone.
Yeah.
So there are different ways to go about it, like having that digital detox.
It's hard, right? It's very difficult, I think. It's challenging. I don't think it's impossible, but I think it's very challenging to change that behavior that now we've had for so many years, probably over a decade, the reaching for your device. And I'm very curious about this. You know how the phone, now that we're on this topic, which wasn't on the agenda, but let's just go with the flow. It eliminated boredom. You can it killed boredom completely. Like you can be entertained at any point of the day and get your fix for new things at all times.
Right. And that was the selling point. That was the marketing behind. Oh, entertainment 24/7.
What was it? It was a internet device. No, yeah, an internet device or something. That was one of the major points for the iPhone's pitch.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it was a touch screen iPod with, an iPod with touchscreen controls, an internet communication device, and a phone. And so those were the three major points for it. But the thing that I came across the other day is a post by the author of a book called Sapiens, and I know his first name is Yuval. I'm blanking on his other names, but he's writing a book called Nexus, and it's coming out this month, and I'm actually looking forward to checking it out because he's covering AI and he's covering our relationship towards it. And so what his post said is that before, attention it was at stake, but now with AI, it's intimacy that's at stake. So if before we were able to eliminate boredom, I think the thesis for this book is that AI presents a sort of a intimacy on demand, basically. So it's an interesting sort of evolution of things that are I don't know if I should say at stake, or it's interesting to me. I find it extremely fascinating just how technology can push our evolution, yet
set us back.
in
or
a way,
hinder.
yeah, it challenges us, or it presents new questions, new problems, new conundrums. It's like a double-edged sword type thing, yeah. And so I'm interested to read about that.
Sorry. Yes, that would be interesting topic to explore, to deep dive into it on the book. I'm intrigued to see what the book has to say.
Yeah, same.
I was just gonna quickly say that I think with anything in life, one, it's about balance, and then whatever you decide to do to get something, you gotta give something.
Yeah.
So like with this digital or AI, quote unquote, takeover of AI, sure, we're hoping that we gain freedom from doing the things that we don't want to do. However, I think the trade would be, are we gonna become like slaves to AI because we're depending on AI so much to do so much that if AI doesn't work or something, like, are we just gonna get stuck? Or, because AI runs on internet, that's one, and it runs on energy. So if there's no power,
energy.
Right? If there is no power, you cannot turn the computer. If there is no computer and no internet, AI cannot run. So there's all these things that AI depends on. Yeah. And then also, of course, if you don't, let's say to a certain extent, you don't use AI, then that means you have to go and find the answer yourself to the questions or things you're trying to do. And I think to a certain extent, that's what like the Google search bar kept us from going to the library. Now everything was within reach.
Oh, yeah. I want to think about something, or a quote that comes to mind from Leonardo da Vinci. I think in one of his notebooks was just like urging his assistants or whoever was in his studio, or what. I think it was also maybe notes to himself. I don't quite remember, but it's from the Walter Isaacson book, the biography on Leonardo da Vinci, where I came across this, where he says, go to the source. Don't, like, he was very about learning things through experience, learning things firsthand, not somebody said that heart works in this certain way and that's how we're going to take the information. He wanted to open up the human body and to really understand what was going on inside. And so I think it comes down to that principle and that desire to always stay questioning and wanting to go and learn things on your own, and not really just accept what an AI or search result random page is going to tell you. You're going to try to go and get to the source. But it's very interesting.
Right. And it's interesting you mentioned that, because I experienced that during my days at Yeezy.
Yeah?
Yeah. It was always very, how can I say, what's the word for it? Like, he always wanted to experience things in person. He wanted to meet people in person. And that was, I experienced that because the first time I met, which was like interview / meeting, like a meet and greet. But in that first time I met him and that first meeting with him, he was quiet most of the time. He didn't talk much. He was looking at my work. He was just listening to what I was talking with the other designer. And at the end of the meeting, he just said, "Oh, thank you for coming. I just wanted to meet you in person." That's all he said.
Wow.
So I totally shared that same sentiment with Leonardo da Vinci's enthusiasm for experiencing things in person.
Going to the
And
source.
that's why museums are so important. Also like, how many times haven't we gone to a museum or see something that we used to see on textbooks, pictures, whatever, and we see it in person, and I would say most of the time it's not what we expected.
Yeah.
Oh, it's smaller than I thought. Oh, it's
Yes.
bigger than I thought. Oh, the color is different in person. Oh, this is so just like an interesting experience seeing it in person.
So I have a couple things. The first one, I want to hear more about your interview, but the second thing that I want to mention, because I don't want to forget this, is on that topic of experiencing art, for example, firsthand. There is a book called Ways of Seeing by John Berger that was, it used to be a show. It's on YouTube. You should go check it out if you haven't already.
Really?
Yeah, it's really great. We should put a free game alert right here in this part of the podcast.
Ways of Seeing.
Ways of Seeing. And what he talks about is he actually borrows from this other writer from like 1930 something who wrote this really important book called Mechanical Art in the Age of Mechanical Reproduction. But the idea is that the photo basically killed art as we knew it because, right? Because it plants the idea, like before the photograph, people would experience the Mona Lisa when they experienced the Mona Lisa, or they would experience a piece of art when they saw it.
When they saw it.
Exactly.
Right.
But because of the photograph, when you're presented with a piece of art in a textbook, that becomes your idea of the artwork. And when you see it in real life, you compare what you're seeing to the idea that you had before.
Oh my God.
And so it's completely different. So it completely broke what the power of a painting really comes across when you're experiencing it face to face. Not
first time.
Exactly. Not when you see an image of it. And so in a way, it takes the power away from the painting in a way, because it reduces it to that really bad photo in that textbook or a picture on your phone or whatever. And when you see it in real life, you don't think, oh, this is the Mona Lisa or this is the Salvador Dali painting. I'm seeing it for the first time. You think, oh, wow, this is really different from that one picture that I saw in the textbook. Yeah. So again, on that topic of going to the source, seeing things in real life, experiencing them in real life. And so I'm imagining that is also how an artist like Ye wants to experience the people that he's adding to the team, that he's collaborating or thinking of collaborating with, because you're not going to get an accurate representation of someone's capabilities
over the phone. Yeah.
Exactly. Because there's a lot of fidelity that gets lost. You can read a lot about a person when you see them face to face. But yes, I want to hear more. I know you mentioned already just like how he was in the interview, but I'm curious to hear about you. How were you in terms of just how you were feeling? Because here you were at this point in your career that you've been dreaming about for so long. What was that like?
It wasn't, well, I had to keep the composure, of course, but when I saw him, it's one of those things like, oh, he's a person, he's just a person. Like, I don't know, he's like people in the street and you don't get excited. So like, it was a similar sentiment where, oh, he's just a person and I'm just meeting with him. You're not going to say or ask anything out of line, or you're not going to fan over it. Oh, I love this and that, what you've done. Like, I didn't do or say anything like that, and I never did. I never did. Yeah. Because I wanted to keep that work relationship, professional relationship. Also, hey, yes, of course, you're special, you're great, whatever, all your accomplishments and all of that. But at the end of the day, you are a person.
True.
I'm treating you as such, like a person, like
Yeah, totally.
good morning, hello, goodbye. Hey, here's the work. What do you think? Okay, thank you. I don't know. It was just like a professional relationship.
Yeah.
And that's what I always wanted to keep it as. I'm not trying to be best friends, or I'm not trying to cross that boundary, because it's not what I came for. But yeah, when I first met him and I first saw him, I was I was collected. We talked about my work to the other designer. There was another designer doing most of the talking. He was just like shadowing. And at the end, when we finished, I had I had a blue IKEA duffel bag, the one that you can also carry. And I was putting all my work in there, because that's all that, by the way, that's all I show in the meeting. I didn't present a portfolio. I didn't present anything 2D. I presented physical prototypes of my work.
That's awesome. Yeah. Wow.
And that's all I show. I didn't show anything else.
That's incredible.
Yeah, because I wanted to I had a feeling, especially for the position that I was coming to interview for, it was sample maker. So I was thinking okay, sure, showing a 2D representation of my work to a certain extent showcases what I can do, but it would go a lot farther if I show a sample of my actual work. And I also believe that if I'm showing the prototype, the sample, and to get to that point, that means that you needed to have a design. That means that you needed to pattern make the design. So all those things are given that you've already done. And this prototype is the result of all those steps. So for me, it was just, you know what, let me just show my samples, nothing else. And I could move because I got the job.
Yeah.
And yeah, at the end, that's when he said that, hey, thank you for coming. I just wanted to meet you in person. And then as I was leaving, I put all my work in the IKEA blue duffel bag, and I put it on my back because I was going to walk away. So I put it on my back. He told me oh, please wait 1 second. I really like this bag. And he took a picture of it. He took a picture of me wearing the bag. That was it. I walked away, and that was on a Thursday. That meeting was on a Thursday morning. And then Monday, at 10 a.m., I get an email, job offer, please sign.
Wow.
And starting day was the next day. So
wow.
I came back on Tuesday.
Such a great story. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a very cool story because I hadn't heard this part, because in the podcast we've talked about this. When we first met, you were sharing your ambition with me about wanting to collaborate with him, and it's really beautiful to see how that blossomed and became reality. On the next thing that we wanted to cover was, you recently had a trip to Georgia where you did some really cool stuff. And I want to hear more about that, because as you mentioned in the beginning of the podcast, what we do in our leisure time, what we do outside of work, is often a source of inspiration for our work. And it's just, I just want to hear more about what you were up to.
It was one of our friends, actually bachelor trip, and he wanted to do the Georgia Traverse, which is a trail or dirt road that goes through the Georgia mountains. And we did it in 2 days, separate sections. We camped throughout the trip, because there are some camping sites, and makes you think how little you need to live, how little you need to survive. Because I backpacked this trip. I was like, okay, let me try if I can pull this off. So I only brought a backpack, Of course, 2 days later, our final destination was Asheville, North Carolina. So when we got there, we got to the Airbnb, and you reset back to civilization. So I did laundry, whatever. But it was a great trip because you got to experience like being in the woods, no distractions. It was very therapeutic. And then of course then you have the contrast, the opposite. Once we got to Asheville, it was like a lot of tourists, a lot of things going on. And it was also Labor Day weekend. So it was full of people. But it was great. It was great getting to experience. I'm always like paying attention to like graphic design throughout the city. People are drawn to what stickers do you see and all of those things. So I took a few shots of some inspiration, some interesting aesthetics throughout Asheville, because I'm in the process of creating a visual identity or like visual representation of my name that I want to use on products. I have been exploring that for the past couple months. Yeah, I'm always seeking things or elements that could help me articulate what I want to portray throughout this visual representation of my name. So yeah, that was pretty much in a nutshell what I did throughout the week, throughout this Labor Day weekend, and how good it was to like reset and do something different. And I think it's also important for all of us to at least once a year do something that you haven't ever done. For me, just coincidentally, like the camping aspect of it, doing the road trip, I haven't done it before. So it felt good because you start building your personal resume of accomplishments or So that was interesting. So like it's important for us to also have a personal resume. Not everything has to be work related or work achievements. It doesn't have to be that.
Did you learn how to make a fire? Or did you have to make a fire?
We
like
did,
a campfire?
but we had like but we had like modern amenities. So I think we had a lighter, we had charcoal.
That's cool.
I don't think it was that hard. We didn't go like hardcore. Although I did sleep I had a sleeping bag, but nothing else. So it was interesting, that connection with Mother Earth.
Yeah.
You laying down on the ground.
Yeah.
Nothing else.
Did you ever have a chance? Did you ever have a chance to camp as a kid?
A couple times. Yeah, only a couple times, but it wasn't like a weekly thing. Yeah,
I didn't really get that experience. I think it's such a cool, like anytime I hear people who have from the beginning been able to go and camp in really cool places, I'm always like, wow, that must have been so cool. Because it is a important, like you mentioned, just like doing something every year that's different, that's out of your comfort zone maybe, but also just trying to factor in nature in some way. It grows your appreciation for it. And especially for designers, industrial designers or fashion designers, people who make things with materials, it's important to know that you exist in this world and that what you do has the materials you source, the things that you do impact the environment. And it's always good to have that connection, because I feel like when you live in the city, it's very easy to be removed from that. Or when you're in front of a screen all day, it's easy to forget that there's beautiful spaces out there. That's amazing. Now you made me want to go on a camping trip, so I'm going to have to
try it. Yeah. At least a camping site, at least do a camping site or a cabin.
Oh, I love cabin. What do they call it? It's glamping when you do a cabin.
Glamping?
Yeah, because it's like glamour camping.
Oh, that's so funny. Yeah, camping is a little bit like hardcore, on the hardcore side of the spectrum.
Totally.
Camping, I think, in the camping or glamping, I think it's fair. It's okay. You get the same out of it, but with modern amenities. Access to modern amenities.
Okay, question for you. So you're in LA. What are the seasons like in LA? Do you guys get fall, the way like it's turning different colors kind of? Because I've never experienced fall in LA.
In LA? Yes, it gets chilly. I think like times are like definitely summer feels like it lasts longer because it's really hot, and then fall is not maybe as cold as it should be because it's transitioning into a cooler weather. I think winter for us is like what fall should. No, how can I say? Yes, winter feels more like a fall,
I see.
and then we have spring, summer, fall, which is just like a slightly cooler transition months into hot, and then back to not as hot.
Okay.
Uh,
Okay. So
that's how I would see it. It's like fall is not like fall; it's just not as hot as summer, I would say.
Okay.
And then
Okay.
winter is like a fall. But yeah, of course, you have those like off days or off weeks where it's really hot, it's
Right.
really cold.
Right.
But other than that, it's a
Right.
pretty predictable one.
Okay. Yeah, because it's starting to get cooler here in New York, and I was curious because seasons are so just like, would you say they're very
Very defined.
defined? Yeah, it's once it's fall, everything changes color. It's like the upstate New York is absolutely just, it looks incredible. And I'm thinking
Wow. I
maybe
can imagine.
California in some areas is like that as well. It's great. I'm glad we got a chance to cover nature and the Georgia trip. It's funny that you and I both went to Asheville this year.
That's funny, yeah.
Right?
What do you think of Asheville?
It's cool. I like it. I think it has a special charm to it, and it reminds me a lot of a place in New York. It's much smaller, called Woodstock, where there's a lot of craftspeople, there's a lot of nature, there's a lot of culture around beer and brewing and that kind of
Yes.
thing. There's a lot of
Yes, it's
music
very
as
like,
well.
yes. I like that. It was like a great, like just leisure activities, like very artistic inclined community.
Totally. They have this like free spirit, like it's almost like the 1960s never left kind of thing, you know?
Yeah, hippie land, yeah.
Counterculture. Yeah, exactly. But that's cool. So I think we've covered a number of topics, and one thing that I wanted to cover just quite briefly is the basically, what do you do when you know that you need to make a change in your career? You're unhappy with where you're at, or you are no longer being challenged where you're at. How do you keep
Oh, yes.
enthusiasm growing in unexpected ways? And we've covered this topic before, but I just wanted to get your angle on this because I've had a couple conversations this week with different designers where one of them is thinking about the next steps. Both of them are thinking about next steps, but one of them is in a different headspace, and there's distinct headspaces, right? So what sort of thing would you advise them in this as they're writing the next chapter of their career?
It is very interesting you bring that up because I had this conversation yesterday. This creative, she's working at Nike, and we've kept in touch throughout the years. And we talked yesterday about being at this crossroad where, hey, I want to still be creative. I want to be a creative, but I felt like the space organization where I'm at, I felt like this is the limit for a creative. And the way for me to grow is doing something else, which is that often that something else is management, like managing a team, managing projects. That's often the way to grow for creatives or designers at companies, corporations. And yes, when you've hit the ceiling of like in design or your creative field, it's hard to leave behind what you used to do, whether it's out of habit or because you really like it and you want to keep doing it. Could be many reasons why it's hard to leave that behind, but I don't think you have to abandon it. I think there is a right balance between leadership and creative output. So yeah, we were talking about like being at that crossroad where, because I felt I've shared the same dilemma. We're in the same scenario because I have also been in a position where I feel like I've hit my ceiling in terms of like being a designer, a creative. And in the past 2 years, I have been considered for leadership/management position of design teams or creative teams. And this year, I was considered for a director role for creative operations for this company. And so that makes me think, is that a chapter or something that I should do? And part of me, yes, wants to explore that, because I think there is a lot of value in creating a landscape for creatives and designers to do their best work. And I think the only people that could achieve that are people that have been there. I have experienced what a successful creative team looks like, works like, and I've also experienced what a not successful and not successful creative team works like. I know what hasn't worked and I know what has worked. So therefore, for me, I feel like we could put ourselves in this situation of leadership and truly create a space and operations and processes that facilitate the creation of like highly innovative, highly creative work without hindering we can facilitate without being too process oriented or creating a system that truly caters to the creatives. So I feel we understand the process and we have been followers, and to be a good leader, you have to be a good follower first. And we have what it takes to truly create a system that caters to the creative dynamics, to the work that we do. So that's why I lean towards, yes, of course, I wish I hadn't had a shitty manager before, because I think I would have created better things, it would have hindered my work. So I want to be a great manager. I want to be a great lead to help you create the best work that you can.
Yeah. I think what I get from you've shared, there's a lot of self-reflection that needs to happen, and you can't run from that. Like, you can't evade that. You have to ask yourself what it is that you value, what it is that you think you want to be doing a year, 2 years from now, maybe. And really just like being honest with yourself, like whether you have, one, the experience to do the job that you want to do, and then two, the will to try that new thing,
to do it.
To do it. So yeah, thank you for that. And I hope this helps whomever is listening and going through the same process and considering these questions.
And yes, I think we're a good place where I think we can close this chapter, and we would love to hear our audience's thoughts, comments, questions in regards to the topics we touched on today. What tools are you using to create presentation work? Has anything changed? And then, of course, hear about what personal experiences are you using to propel your professional side of yourself, your professional self. And then, of course, we would like to hear your thoughts and concerns about hitting that creative ceiling, and then where do you go from there? What could you do? What should you do? So
yeah,
we would like to hear from our audience.
Amazing. Thank you so much for listening.
This is the Moodboard podcast, and this is Cesar.
This is Aaron.
And we are two creatives having meaningful and insightful conversations to help you unlock your creative potential. Thank you so much for tuning in. Until next time.